Another episode of great debates we got coming for you. I'm Stephen Villani here with my good friend Sean McGee. And Sean, just like our last great debate where we had between Juju, Devontae Adams, and Chris Godwin, we have a very similar situation here because talent-wise, these guys are kind of close.
Kind of.
It's
That's the
it's
key word.
it's
Kind of, Steven.
kind of close. It's very. I think it's close. You think it's not as close as I do. That's how I'll put it.
That
But
is true. I think it's a little clear cookie cutter. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. But it's called a great debates for a reason. So
that
maybe
is
you can
true.
sway my mind a little bit.
So the three players we're talking about here, right now we're transitioning to the running back position, and we're going to be talking about
Running back,
your
running
favorite,
back, running back
huh?
in what? The NFL, the
In the
CFL.
NFL. What
Oh,
a
okay. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
but we're gonna talk our start bench trade between Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott, and Nick Chubb, all of which had great seasons last year. We'll run through the stats and everything, but I think you and I are on the same wavelength of who our start would be.
Most of the time, we're not on the same
But
wavelength.
this one, I
Well,
think
this
we're
is
in a
pretty.
complete agreement
This
that
is
number
pretty.
one, our start has to be Zeke Elliott. I don't think
Absolutely.
there's no other person in this list that
Cookie
you can
cutter.
say.
It's cookie cutter.
It's good. There's the number one for me is cookie cutter. It's this after part that's more similar in talent to me, at least.
So you want to talk about the stats of what Zeke kind of did for the Cowboys last year? I don't
Yeah,
want to be a fanboy.
so last year Zeke had 301 rushes for I think it was 1,357 yards and 12 touchdowns, which is a very solid season. Not to mention that he also added a lot through the air
Yeah. Can I
as
say what
well.
he added through the air?
Would you like to go
I
ahead?
would like to. 52 catches, 420 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which obviously you're getting that out of your running back with him almost being a 1,400-yard running back already. It's phenomenal. The scrimmage yards he's put up total. So he almost had a 2,000-yard season, 200 yards shy of that total cumulative of rushing and receiving. So obviously he's tremendous asset for the Cowboys. And I think between the three, he's the one has more experience and is more
Right.
by his organization than the other two. So it's pretty easy that he's number one to start.
And also, working off that, what you were saying, 3 out of his 4 seasons, Ezekiel Elliott has had at least 1,300 yards rushing. I don't know if you saw
Consistency
that,
is
but
key.
for three out of his first 4 seasons, that's very impressive.
Absolutely.
And that's something I think Zeke gets overlooked as one of the top backs in the league sometimes.
Let's look at some highlights real quick.
Oh, go for it. I'm very excited to see these highlights.
So let's do this right now. This is his game against the Steelers where he had around 150 yards rushing, maybe a couple more yards than that, and 3 touchdowns, and the touchdown to win the game as well.
I remember watching this game. I really think that this is the game that put Zeke on the map, in my opinion. He was doing solid as a player before that, but this game, you knew he was one of the top, at least a top 5 back in the league.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2016 too, so this is what, 3 years ago then? I feel
yes,
old.
It is.
I feel like I watched this like a couple of weeks ago.
I know.
But just look at that. I mean, once he gets past secondaries, there's no catching him.
Yeah, he's one of the fastest guys out there on the field too.
He's got a little fun jumping into the end zone too. And this is the biggest thing I think is his ability to run after a catch. Mostly screen plays, obviously, and just get our great offensive the Cowboys' great offensive tackles out in front of him, and that's just as crucial to the running game as him himself. That's the passing game technically, but just what he can do. He can do so much. If he needs to bully ball you, he can bully ball you. But if he needs to get into space and run, he can do that as well.
He's an all-around great back, which is
that's a great example.
You don't
right
always
there.
find. He's got just as good as catching ability as he does rushing ability.
Yeah,
which is very rare in the NFL.
For sure. And he couldn't be more valuable for the Cowboys in setting up play actions because every defense has to respect him.
Right.
And it definitely puts secondaries on edge all the time. And he's always, like what we're watching right now, always has the ability to catch balls out of the backfield. He can
And
act
I
like
think
he's
also an
blocking and then
underrated
go.
part of his game is his blocking ability.
Yeah,
If need be, he's very good at protecting the blind side. If there's like a cornerback coming in off the blitz, safety coming in off the blitz, Zeke is willing to do that and protect his QB.
that's one thing I always think fans kind of get caught up with because you want to see the stats and things like that. But coaches always realize that.
Right.
And I've seen Zeke put up great blocks, giving Dak Prescott way more time than he should have. Oh, and here's the touchdown to win the game right here. Great job. That was awesome. I remember watching this game too. I was just getting some feelings because we're all thinking if you're a Cowboys fan, you're like, all right, get it down, let's kick the field goal, and then all of a sudden he just starts running towards the end zone. I mean, it was great. But enough Zeke. There's two other guys we need to talk about. One of them being Dalvin Cook. So for me, if I'm going to jump right along, me and Steven obviously said Zeke being the number one guy. His stats show it. What he's done for the Cowboys shows it. For me, the second guy is Dalvin Cook. I love how he's run. He's had to handle a lot of adversity and getting hurt and fighting through that. But he's a hard man to tackle. I think in this game alone here, it is 154 yards and a touchdown against the Packers last season. Really tough, gritty runner. His yards after contact, I didn't look it up. That's bad on my part. But his yards after contact has to be phenomenal. Right. I want to show, obviously, a little bit of how good and how hard of a runner this guy is. And obviously, he can do it out of the backfield, catching the ball just like that. He had 53 catches for 519 yards on the season. So that's another 500 yards through the air, as well as the 1,100 plus on the ground.
So while you have Dalvin Cook as your second, I actually put Nick Chubb as my second over Dalvin Cook. And my main reasoning for that was because I'm worried about his injury history. If I'm a GM, I'm not going to want to pay him when this guy hasn't fully played a full season yet. That's a big thing at the running back position. If you could get a guy that could be there for you all 16 games, that's what you need.
Yeah.
And that's what Nick Chubb is. Nick Chubb has been consistently he's got that similar style to Dalvin Cook. He's not as good as a receiver outside the backfield. Because Nick Chubb, I believe, had 30-something catches for 270 yards.
Yeah, 36 catches, 278 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But
as compared to Dalvin Cook's, which was much better.
The thing is, I talk about how hard of a runner he is. But obviously those hits do a lot of damage for him as well. And that's the style that he runs. You saw the same thing with going back to Chris Johnson. Obviously that took a toll on him later in his career as well. So I can definitely see your point of wanting to trade him for that aspect. But when that guy's running at you and you're a cornerback in the secondary, I would be like, I'm getting out the way. I mean,
I'm the same way with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is a bruiser, man. He's fast and he will hit you hard.
Yeah.
And I think he showed the ability of what kind of runner he can be, but behind a pretty not that great offensive line in Cleveland.
I will give you that.
He was able to get almost 1,500 yards on the ground. The only thing that was realistically, he could have had more because you know who else is there in Cleveland with him? Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, later in the season.
And you're not going to not give Kareem Hunt the ball.
Yeah, that's right. He was one of the best running.
Exactly.
Obviously, before all the he hit his kid or something like that. Before that happened, he was the best running back in the league by far, Kareem Hunt. It's going to be interesting because they're going to have him. It's going to be really interesting though because his 1,500 yards produced in a season, in my opinion, is definitely going to go down now with Kareem Hunt being there the whole time.
Right.
That's also one thing that weighed in my decision for Cook. Now Cook has to compete with Madison, a really good young back, on the Vikings as well. But he's more of a third down back speed guy that comes in, catches balls, even though Dalvin Cook is really good at catching balls, but spelling Cook to give him breaks and things like that. And they've paired him up really nicely. But Cook's the number one guy there, of course. And I really love him. And I think Chubb's got a great future too. Similar runners like you said.
And they're both young. All three of these guys are still just hitting their primes.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's take a look at some Nick
Yeah,
Chubb highlights. And
we
I
kind
think
of
this game really showed what kind of runner he could be, too. I was very impressed after this game that he had against a very tough Baltimore Ravens defense.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be tough to go up against a Ravens defense, and for him to even get close to 200 yards this game it's incredible,
Right.
and 3 touchdowns. Um,
You don't see that. The Ravens don't give up that kind of game often
yeah,
to
that's
any
very
offensive
true,
player.
very true. Here we got a screen pass too, so he can do it catching the ball, but really predominantly,
That's the part of his game that needs to get better.
yeah, yeah. And if he could work, like if he can get couple hundred yards over 1,000, and then get 400, 500 yards receiving
Mm-hmm.
in a year, I mean that would be phenomenal for him.
Those would be
Here's another
Zeke type
screen pass.
numbers.
Here's another
Those would
screen pass.
honestly be Zeke type numbers. He would just
Yeah.
need to get in the end zone a little bit more because he only had 8 touchdowns. He's only ever
8
scored
touchdowns.
8
Yeah.
touchdowns his rookie year and his second year. So we'll see if his touchdowns will increase at
But
all.
obviously, the Browns really like this kid and have invested in him because they had Carlos Hyde, and then they traded him knowing that Chubb was behind him, and they're like, we're going to let this kid get experience and run. I think it's been the best for them. And you also have Kareem Hunt. You're going to have a two-headed monster. If one guy's not feeling it, the other guy's probably is.
Right.
And though I think Chubb's production is going to go down, ultimately the running game at the Browns is going to be really good on top of some of their, Odell and Jarvis Landry, some of their receiving weapons as well.
Right.
That was a good touchdown there. Not really.
That was.
A little
Yeah, he had to juke out Earl Thomas on that one. That's not easy to do either.
Ooh, jump over there. I mean, that's just really good right there.
And that's another thing that's underrated about Nick Chubb's game. He is able to juke some people out of their shoes.
Yeah.
He's got some moves.
I mean, you see him as this powerful runner, and sometimes people kind of forget that about his game, but he totally can.
The thing I'm interested to see is if now that he's got a more solidified offensive line, like the Browns now have added Taylor Lewan and Jedrick Wills, who they acquired in the draft, and I'm very interested to see how that's going to work out now, if it's going to help Nick Chubb at all, or if the Kareem Hunt being there for the full season is going to harm it, actually, because it could really go either way.
Whew, look at that speed. The other thing I was going to say, too, for Chubb, for a young age, he's a decently patient runner. Now, he's obviously – there's been times, obviously, in the season where he was impatient and hit a hole too soon or things like that, but, like, just that right there, for that second of holding up and waiting for the hole to develop is like really it's the football
the next
IQ
level
for
of what you want from a running back
at a young age. So definitely
you don't see players willing to be patient like that. That's especially at the running back position. Usually you're taught just the first open hole you see, just go for it. Get as many yards as you can.
Yeah. So obviously I have nothing against Chubb too, sort of like the last debates. But he'd be third on my list to trade. I think also, I was saying in the last one too, but GM-wise, you can get a lot for Chubb. If I was the Browns.
You can also get a lot for Cook is what my thought process behind it.
Yeah,
because
and
Cook has another year under his belt than Chubb, so maybe you could even potentially get more for Cook than you could for Chubb.
Yeah, it's true. And also, the only thing is, like, if I was the Browns, I'd be more willing to trade Chubb, I guess, if you have Kareem Hunt and he's going to be a monster. I know the Vikings have Alexander Mattison behind Cook too, and he's very good young back. Don't get me wrong, but I would waive.
He's not as established as a Kareem Hunt, obviously.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So my list is Zeke, Cook, Chubb. Steven, you're Zeke, Chubb, Cook.
Yes.
Can't really complain. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on what order you would do. I'd hope Zeke would be first, to be in all fairness. Out of these three,
if it's not, we got some questions.
But comment below. We'll definitely get back to you and be like either heck no or okay, I can agree with that. But give some reason and don't just give a list now.
We need some reasoning. Gotta hear what you got to say.
Another good one of great debates. Share it, do whatever. But thanks for listening, guys. Steven, you got anything else to say?
Just if you want us to discuss anything, give us a group of people you want us to start bench trade to like a group of people. Any sport, we'll go over it, talk about it, give stats, highlights, all that fun stuff.
Blah blah.
Because we're constantly coming up with ideas.
Blah blah blah. All right, thank you for listening, guys. Comment below and be awesome. See you guys.